Thursday, I went to Los Angeles for the second time in 2 weeks, and then I came back yesterday night in the evening. And the reason why I went was because at the Japanese American National Museum, which is in Little Tokyo, where the original Nishihong, the LA Betsuing, was originally there. And that's where all the Japanese Americans were rounded up and sent off to Santa Anita racetrack after for the camps. But the original Nishihonganji was there, right? And that the Sagare Fuji is still there if you ever get a chance to go. Who's been there before? Oh, 意外とあんまりいないですね. Okay, so it's on First Street, and it's in Los Angeles, and now there's a big museum there. And the reason why I went was because a professor by the name of Duncan Williams, who is actually a Zen scholar who teaches at USC, invited a lot of people, and he's doing some research in this area. He wrote a book called American Sutra, which is a recent book that came out, and it talks about the Japanese American incarceration experience, and how the Buddhists carried on their faith during the camp time. Okay, and so, but while he was doing his research, he noticed that neither the government nor any Buddhist temple nor any church had a comprehensive list of all the names of those who went to camp. So then he sets about to this project to try to get all the names, and he has a list of names that are it has 120,000 some odd names, I think, but it's not exhaustive. I think he's still looking to see if there's other names that were involved, and so he compiled this list of names into what is called a ireicho. Okay, so you know that ireito, like if you go to Manzanar, there's that big monument that's for all of the, to memorialize the people who have passed away there. And then every temple ideally should have what's called a kakocho. Do you know what a kakocho is? Okay, a kakocho is all the members of the temple. Usually it's right here in the Shumidan, right next to Amida Buddha. It's a log of all the names of those who are members of this temple. And so if you look at Japan, and some of their temples are hundreds of years old, they have logbooks that are they have thousands of names that are listed ever since like the Edo period, maybe even prior to that, right? So because the Buddhist centers used to be these kind of city hall, civic centers in a sense, right? Because if someone died or someone was born, you had to report that to the local temple, and so the temple had names of all of these people, and so later on that becomes this kakocho, and they have a kakocho, and we don't have one, but this is actually our kakocho in a sense, what we have here, because it's the past members who have passed away. So anyway, so that list of names was compiled into this huge book. Okay, so I'd like to share some of these pictures that I took at the Japanese American National Museum event. Hold on 1 second. So this is there's also a picture of this in the book here, but this is one of the obutsudan that they made in the camps using the wood in the camps. And I guess there were two carpenters, they were brothers, who made this huge obutsudan, very, very big. It's almost the size of this shumidan, this center one here. Okay, so this I will talk about a little bit later, again in more detail. But these are rocks, and on these rocks, if you look carefully, there's a kanji written on it, and this is of the Lotus Sutra. Okay, one of the Buddhist scriptures. I will talk a little bit more detail what this is. So that's the size of the butsudan. So this is the title of the exposition, or the tenji, at the museum, called Sutra and Bible. Okay, because there were a lot of Buddhists and Christians that went to these camps. This is a timeline. This is kind of all of the the Buddhist ministers and Christian pastors and Shinto priests that were gathered together to listen to the orientation. There's Duncan Williams. His face is really small, but he's in his robes. And each camp was represented. And so if you look carefully at the middle, there's this little jar there, and that has the soil. That has the soil of so they gathered the soil of all the camps and brought them back to this. And I will explain what that is too. This is the Nishihonganji, the side of the building. And then this is the bishops that are carrying the Irecho. And this is the actual book of names. It's a very big book. Yeah. Okay. That's, okay. So yeah, that's kind of the idea of what is being talked about here. Um, but so 125,000 names, and it was a very interesting. You could feel free to take a look at this book. This book was given to all of the people later participants. It was a kickoff to this Tenji, this exposition, and they had a memorial service, and so all of the religious representatives of different locations came to this. So there's a lot of Kaikyoshi ministers there, but other, Shinto, again, I said Shinto priests, Zen priests, and Christian pastors that were there too as well. But for me personally, I kind of felt like an empty vessel because going into this, because I don't have any connection. I don't have actually any relatives that went to the camps. My father tells a funny story. He says that, all of the members are talking about camps and camps, and he thought at first it was like a summer camp that they go to have fun and stuff. But he later finds out that it's the incarceration camp. And so I felt like I was this empty vessel, but nevertheless, I went there to absorb all of the kind of the experiences there. And it's very interesting, all the participants, they brought, mementos of the camp. So they had, friends and family pictures of the camp, and they put them on their personhood as they went to go do Omairi. Or some people brought like nenju, or, just kind of memorabilia from the camps that they brought to this. So just seeing that and seeing how impacted all these people were from this service, it was very touching to see this, and to see that people of all different faiths come together to kind of remember those who have came before us, and why we are here. It is because of these people. And so the Duncan Williams says that part of the project is not only to memorialize those who have gone before us, but also to kind of repair from here on out. To what do we do to make sure that the next generation doesn't have the same experience, to make sure that our identity continues on as Japanese Americans here in America. So there's this idea of past, present, and future represented in this thing. And he also talks about something very interesting. He talks about that we shouldn't be ashamed of this history. We shouldn't be regretful of the things that happened to us. As a matter of fact, we should be proud and we should be honest. That's what this Irecho does. And so he gives the example of the kintsugi. Kintsugi. Okay, so let me show you what that is. Yeah. So so if a plate or a teacup falls and breaks, it cracks, they mend those pieces together with gold, and then they meld it back together. And the cracks, which at first look like damage to the cup, actually turns out to become the uniqueness, the beauty of the cup, right? And it's been there's this newfound perspective of this cup. So if you look at, for example, this, it shows you it gives you an idea of this, and how these crafts, you can't predict what it's going to look like, right? And so it's melded together through the gold, and it becomes this beautiful new piece of pottery or ceramic. And so he was saying that we are kind of like this, and that we might have been broken in this history and traumatized, but that experience then becomes the source of strength, of solidarity, and identity as Japanese Americans here in America. And so I thought that was a really powerful statement. It's very in line with Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, because in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, Shinran Shonin talks about the ice becoming, the more the ice, the more the water. In other words, the more the blind passions that we have, the more we realize that we are embraced and by the Amida Buddha's great compassion, the more we join and become the water of Amida Buddha. And so that is a very kind of Jodo Shinshu, it's something that we can very get behind. very much. And so it was a very great experience being a part of this, and I felt like I was. And but of course, I have to take a Buddhist kind of interpretation of this, right? So what is the Buddhist understanding of this? And then I would like to go back to the picture of the Lotus Sutra. So a person who was kind of landscaping the area, one of the camps, I forget which name it was just kind of digging with his shovel, and then he heard pong like this auto, right? And then he's like, what is this? He thought it might have been like kind of like a coffin or something like that. But upon further inspection, he realizes it's this barrel of all these rocks in it, and then he looks inside, and these rocks have kanji on there, and he doesn't know what this is. For the longest time, they didn't know what it was. But some researcher did a little analyzing and realized that it was part of the Lotus Sutra. We don't chant the Lotus Sutra, but it's very important for the Tendai tradition and the Nichiren tradition. But it's nevertheless the Lotus Sutra. And so had he not stumbled upon this, we would have never seen this, and it would have been lost in history. But these were written during the camps. So one of the ministers left this behind. And so it really, there is this idea in Buddhism where they bury the sutras in hopes that future generations will be able to come in contact with the Buddha Dharma. So if in this present state of conditions, like there's like a war or like a famine, and they don't know if they're going to live on, they bury the sutras so that in the future generations might come across these sutras, which is exactly what happened here. And so it's a very significant thing to kind of remember this. And I think to myself that sometimes we are in a dire situation too, right? This world, we don't know, with climate change and all these things happen. And I look at quite frankly the situation of the BCA and our temples. The membership is declining. It's been doing that for quite a while now, and we can't seem to crack the code to be able to get people to come back. It's becoming a kind of a serious situation, and I don't know what is going to happen with the next generation. And so this minister reminds me, what do I do as a minister living now? What is it that I can do to try to help the Buddha Dharma continue on for future generations? But I don't think it's just a minister's issue. I think it's also all the lay too. For the lay, what can we do to let this tradition continue on for future generations? For me, I think I want to tell the stories of the people who found joy in this tradition, who found solace and comfort in the Buddha Dharma, and to share those stories as much as I can until the day I die, because I really think that this teaching can speak to everybody, and it has something very powerful that can touch everybody's hearts, and that is something that I hope to do for the rest of my days, and hopefully this experience of what this person did can inspire us to think about how it is as Buddhists that we can get people to continue to listen to the Buddha Dharma and see the significance of this tradition. Okay, so I'd like to end today's talk here, but I will leave this book up. Please feel free to come up and see. It's got colored pictures, so it's really nice. So feel free to take a look inside. And this white paper here is the list of all the camps that were represented. And so